get it working. So much for superior intelligence.
Timothy, R2, what are you guys doing? Our friends are here.
Trying to watch cartoons.
I know the viewfinder's broken, and so are a few other things around here. It's almost like someone's been toying with us. But guys, not speaking to our friends is really rude. Hey everyone, and welcome to Groove Builders, the show where we create together. I'm your host, Disorderly Cone, and this is my friend R2 and Timothy, the tea-serving Dalek.
Greetings, builders.
So you two, what were you guys trying to watch?
The Flintstones.
Ah, the Flintstones. That's actually one of my favorite Sunday morning cartoons from back when I was a little dude. But, thinking about it right now, our friends over at Fascinations actually sent us the Flintstone Car from the Metal Earth Iconics collection. And if you guys want to build it, and I would really like to build it now.
Construction.
All right, that sounds great. All right, let's get down to the workbench and take a look at the
Groove
package.
Builders, welcome to the workbench. We have our Metal Earth Legends Flintstone car in some pretty unique special edition packaging. And look at this, it's absolutely huge. I mean, this is the biggest Legends model we've built here on the show. Let's go ahead and take a look at the back. On the back, we get a brief look at our metal, followed by a look at our completed build. Then just below, we have a difficulty rating here of easy, which will be a nice change from all the builds we've done recently. Then on the right, we have a QR code which we can scan to get a 360 view of our build if we need it while we're building. This is very handy for attaching different bits of detail onto our build. Then just below, we have some instructions on how to build our model, but more on that later. Groovers, let's go ahead and open up our package. That one didn't open up as easy as the last one did, that's for sure. We have our instructions, and we have our 2 sheets of metal. That coloring looks so awesome. Groovers, let's get out our first couple of pieces. And just like that, we have all of our parts needed for the first 2 pages. Let's get started with step 1 and grabbing part 1. Now the first thing we're doing here is forming the hand. So what we're going to do is start in the middle and go right to that fold line there, and we're going to bend it over. It's very important to make sure you're bending right at that fold line. Now don't bend it all the way, because we have these tabs up here that we're going to bend down, and we're going to insert these tabs into the insertion holes. Now we got that first one in there. We're going to start pushing our metal here along the seam, making sure we don't scratch any of that paint as we do that. And then we should be able to get our last little tab here in there. Awesome. Now it's very important that when we're bending these pieces that we match up all the seams the best we can. And of course, when we're bending our tabs right here, that we're going as close as we possibly can to the metal, and then bending a tab over. And the reason for that is because we want to make sure we have the best connection possible, and not going right to the edge of the metal will ensure that you actually have a bad time with that connection. That's our first arm bent there. Now we're going to grab part number 2 here. And part number 2 is slightly bent. And we're going to put our pieces in, lining them up one by one, not the far back there, just in the middle. Again, going right to that metal's edge and then bending the tabs over. That creates a really nice look. And our first arm is complete. Really cool. Now let's do the same thing again with step 2. And there is arm number 2. Pretty simple. Put that guy down, and now we can start with part number 3. Looks like we're forming our feet here, and just like before, let's start this angle up by forming our sides, doing the 90-degree bend there. And doing a 90-degree bend here, going right to that fold line to bend our piece. Now this is a very unique shape, but because we have this insertion hole here, it should be pretty easy for us to be able to get those tabs. These tabs here, we're going to take them and just bend them straight over. Again, making sure that our piece is as flush to the edge as possible when we're bending our tabs. This will make sure that everything lines up really nicely too. And because our Fred here is sitting, we need to make his knees nice and secure. We have our one leg there. Let's do the second one here. Okay, and there's our leg. Now, let's move on to our next step, which is step 4. We're going to need to grab part 6 here. If I can pick it up. There we go. So we're going to bend our pieces full 90 degrees here on all sides, just like that, being very careful not to bend too much. And then we're going to press this in just a little bit, and press this in just a little bit, matching our sides. Very good. Now we can grab our other steps that we did earlier and attach them on. Fred here looking pretty good. Let's continue on with our next step here, which is step 5. We need to attach what looks like to be the front of Fred's hair to the back of his hair. Interesting. Now that we got our hair all formed up, it's time to do his face. I'm going to do this right here for right now, because we're going to be attaching a whole bunch of parts in here, and I want to make it easy for me to get to them. Let's do this right here for right now. Fred's nose. Making sure that we grab the side that's painted first. Bend it down. And now what I'm going to do is just match the seams all the way around. And I'm doing a lot of small bends to do this. There we go. We have our nose formed. Now we're going to attach that nose. Ears all on. That was a little tricky. Make sure you pre-bend some of your tabs a little bit, and that will make it a lot easier for you to be able to get these in where you want them to be. Now we're going to go ahead and attach the back of Fred's head here. Good. That was pretty easy. Now we need to put our hair on. Be very careful not to scratch that paint off if you can. There's our head. Now let's take part 14 here and attach it to the back of Fred, making sure that we put the non-engraved side on the inside, of course. I'm actually going to bend it straight down. There we go. All right. There is Fred. Looking pretty good, buddy. Now we're going to put you down because we need more parts. And after all that cutting, we have all of our parts needed for page 4 and 5. And it looks like we're starting off this build by finishing Fred up with his scarf and then going on to Barney. let's get started. All right, Fred, now you're done. I'm gonna put you down here and get working on your friend Barney. Okay, so when it comes to part 27, this is something that's kind of important. You want to make sure the thin part here is on the front and the thick part here of the detail is on the back. That's that little line right here. Thin is the front and thick is the back. And there is Barney, looking really good too. All right, let's put you next to your friend Fred here, and let's start this car. All right, and with both of these parts completed, we're gonna need more parts. And we have all of our parts needed to build the Flintstone car. Now, I went ahead and cut out all of our pieces, even though we have a few pages to go, just because there's really not that many pieces here. Let's go ahead and get started with step 17, which has us putting Fred and our other friend Barney here into part 35. Now, just one thing you want to make sure you do here is you want to put Fred's foot in first. Just like that, being very careful not to scratch those knees. And boom. Fred, you are now sitting. Let's secure you in there. You're going nowhere. Let's grab Barney. Same thing, being very careful not to scratch the finish on the lower piece here. Barney, you're almost perfect. There we go. Same thing. You're going nowhere too. All right, our friends are all seated. Very cool. Now we need to form the wheels here, which I'm going to use one of my doming tools for. I think we'll start with this one and then work our way down to this guy. Excellent. Very good. We have both of our wheels here. This one definitely shaped a lot better than this one, but we're going to use the sides here to make them both look nice. All right, let's grab part 37 here. There we go. Both of our pieces there are now complete, and we can attach them onto our side. Now we're going to do this very carefully here. One tab at a time. Oh, shoot a monkey. 2, 3. Being very careful not to take the paint off of our tabs. And there is our first wheel. Very cool. Let's place this down here and grab part 39. Part 39 is pretty easy to form. We're just grabbing either side and making a rectangle kind of shape. And there's part 40. Now we need part 41 as we move on to step 22. And it looks like we're doing more wheels, so we're going to do the same thing by making these rectangles again. Now that we have both of these done, we can grab part 20 here. There we go, step 22 and 23 complete. We can move on now to part 43. That's this big guy right here, this beautiful colorful canopy, looking really sweet. Okay, let's bend this front part here, grabbing as much of the metal as we can, going right to that fold line and bending it straight down. Very cool. Now we're going to go to this back area here, and it's big enough that I don't have to actually use my tweezers. I can just use my fingers to bend it straight down. Very cool. Now we can grab our other two parts. I think that will be hidden. I think that looks pretty good. So if you put your seam here, that should hide it from the rest. Let's go ahead and secure that here. Okay, now let's move on to step 27. Same thing as before, we're going to grab a good chunk of this piece. Same thing as before, we're going to bend these guys back, making sure they're nice and even. Very nice. Same thing here. And just like before, we're going to form this piece, part 49 here, with part 48. Not bad again. Looking really cool. I like the look of this a lot. All right, now that we have both of these formed, we can attach all of our pieces together. Very nice. Let's attach our stuff up here too. Might as well get everything going here now. Okay, let's be very careful here not to scratch up our Fred and Barney as we insert them into the car. Little difficult, but we got her all in there. And there we go, the Flintstone car. This looks so awesome.
We did it, Groove Builders! We built the Flintstone car from the Metal Earth Iconics collection. And this build was a lot of fun, and pretty straightforward too. But if you're looking to build this at home, there are a few things you're going to want to know. Let's talk about those things in construction. For my first point, I want to talk about the paint job here on the Flintstone car. It really does look nice with this flat matte finish, and I think with all the other Legends models we built here on the show, this one is my favorite by far. That being said though, because the paint here is a little bit thicker than normal, it can be very easy to scratch off when we're forming some of our pieces, especially some of these edges right here along the top. Just make sure that when you're bending these pieces that you're not dragging your tweezers along the edges. This will prevent any kind of scratching from happening, and of course you having to touch it up with paint later. For my second point, this build has a lot of parts that look exactly the same. So if we're cutting out a lot of parts at the same time, like I did in my video here, it's very important to keep track of what part is which. You definitely don't want to mix up parts with this, as it will negatively affect your build. For my third and final point, I want to talk about securing our tabs. Now, for the most part, when it comes to building Metal Earth models, I really do recommend following the instructions when it comes to securing our tabs. However, at the end of your build, I also recommend going over your build to see if there's anything that you might want to change to make it look a little bit better. In this particular case, I recommend bending all of the tabs here along the wheels instead of twisting them. This will make for a better connection, and you won't have this movement here with the roof. And with that being said, Groove Builders, let's move on to build time. The Metal Earth Flintstone car took me just over 2 hours to build, with the majority of that time being spent on Fred and Barney here on the front. Also a little bit of time on the roof here too. Now for the most part, this build is very straightforward, and you'll find yourself having very little difficulty when it comes to forming most of the pieces. It is important though to take your time, and remember, it's never a rush. If you rush this build, you might find yourself scratching some of the detail, and that will definitely affect the end model. And finally, Groove Builders, my thoughts. The infamous Flintstone car. You know, Groove Builders, looking at this build, I can't help but get that sense of nostalgia from when I used to watch this show on Sunday mornings. And I feel like a lot of people out there might get that same feeling too, which is a good thing because this build is extremely easy to build, which is great for new builders out there that have never built one of these builds before. Yes, there are some cylinders here, but those cylinders are really straightforward to build. And even some of the smaller detail here, if you take your time, is pretty simple to get through. But that being said, this is one of my favorite builds that we've done here on the show, and definitely one that I'll be recommending for new builders out there for a long time to come. Alright, Groove Builders, that brings us to the end of our show. I had a really good time building the Flintstone car with you, and if you guys had a good time, don't forget to press that like button. For more videos like this, hit subscribe as well, as we got all kinds of really cool content coming out in the future. Until next time, Groove Builders, keep building. Now, to go show this to R2 and Timothy. Yabba dabba doo!